From Colorado River water shortages to activism in indigenous communities, two local artists address issues close to them through their work. Sapira Cheuk and Fawn are our guests this week on Nevada Week in Person Extra.
Support for Nevada Week in Person is provided by Senator William H. Hernnstedt.
Welcome to Nevada Week in Person Extra. I'm Amber Renee Dixon. Fawn Douglas is an artist and enrolled member of the Las Vegas Paiute tribe, and she shares her activism through various art forms. We're revisiting an interview with Fawn from late 2023, but first, Sapira Cheuk was born in Hong Kong, moved to Honolulu at 10 years old, and now describes herself as a Las Vegas transplant. Each of these places played a role in shaping who she is as an ink painter. We spoke with Sapira about the other life inspirations behind her art at her home. Thank you for welcoming us into your home and your studio. You moved here in 2018, you told me, from Southern California. It was your husband's job that brought you here. He's an English professor at CSN. Now, prior to moving, what were you hearing about what it was like to live in Las Vegas?
I was hearing stories like, it's very dry, it's a desert, and not just a desert, but a cultural desert, and it's definitely not true once I moved here. It's a harsh climate with harsh people, and that's also not true. The climate is harsh, but that is not my experience.
And what was your experience, and how did it inspire friends?
It's Kindness Neighbors Art.
Kindness Neighbors Art.
Yeah, so I have never been happier and thriving as an artist since I moved here. I've been given so much opportunities and support in my art practice by the folks that have been here, and I've been able to make art my full-time job in all the roles that I do. And it is through the support of the community.
Why do you think here versus anywhere else?
Yeah, so I think historically there hasn't been a serious focus on the art community here. So the folks, in order for them to really continue to do what they do, they really need to look out for each other. And that support, that generosity was just so natural for the folks that lives here. So for example, if I go into a big gallery in LA and you would be lucky if you were acknowledged by the receptionist. But here, I can go into any space and talk with the folks that work there. I can talk with the gallery owner. I can talk with the exhibition artists. They're so friendly and so welcoming and so willing to share their art, and not only their art, but their resources.
That's really neat. And so that inspired Kindness Neighbors Art, that installation that was at Las Vegas City Hall, which we have pictures of. Now, you are an ink artist. Why that form of art?
Yeah, so I learned how to paint through traditional Chinese brush painting that I developed when I would go back to Hong Kong to visit my family. And I've developed a specific style in grad school where I blend multiple types of ink. One is water soluble and one isn't. So the soluble ink is a Chinese sumi ink, and the non-soluble is an Indian ink, which is what you would use to learn pen and ink drawing in your traditional Western art education. So blending that and using that as my primary medium, that really represents me as a person, as an artist, as an immigrant to this place. And in addition, it has a very Rorschach quality of the ink. So it's a reminder that even though I am the artist, I am making something from my perspective, it also invites the viewer to interpret and create meaning through the medium together.
What was the word you used that I couldn't understand? It was a quality, a Rorschach quality?
Rorschach quality?
Yes, you have to explain what that is.
So the Rorschach ink blot test, so you have a pool of ink and you mush it, and then you would see what you see. It's really abstract and it's not very representational. And in psychology, this is back in the day, would like then tell you what you are actually thinking because you interpret a specific image from the ink.
Wow. Okay. All right. So that's also part of the gradation and abrupt fractures that you described to Bold Journey magazine that you say represent your experience, your dual experience, negotiating two different cultures. And I wonder, is there a moment in your life, a time in your life when that has become so apparent to you that, wow, I am really operating from this perspective and being confronted with a new perspective, and how do I blend the two?
Yeah. So I think that was that really inspired the series Family Tides. I had to go through genetic counseling because I have a history of cancer. And what happened is the doctor will give you a series of questions about your family history. And I had no idea. I don't have any clue because I had moved away. I wasn't living in the same space. I wasn't sharing stories. And I think in the way I was brought up, that wasn't really something that my family did, like share the stories of struggle. So when I had to find answers, I thought like nothing had happened because I haven't heard, but it was because I was expecting that I would be told or those stories would be shared, and that wasn't the case. So through this experience, I was negotiating like my internalized way of operating to my culture. So that was very interesting, and processing all of that really suddenly because that information was just kind of given to me instead of like learning about it throughout my life or my childhood. And that in a way I was able to connect with my family even though we're very far apart in a way that I did not expect, and that's what resulted in the work.
Initially, when you learned that you had this in your history and you had never known about it, did you feel resentful, betrayed?
No, I think I was surprised. And I think for many artists, our way of processing our thoughts is, I think this is under my artist statement, I feel it in my body, it comes out as the work, and then I have to really contextualize it. Like, why did I make this? What was I thinking? What were the themes that were going through my head?
While we're on the topic of medical issues, how did you become aware of the doctor shortage in Nevada?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so I developed an illness while I was an adjunct at UNLV. So I taught part-time, and I had, and this is a story to be shared, it's kind of long, I apologize. So I had, when I was an adjunct, I didn't get consistent care because I would lose my insurance during the summer. And I would have to go onto the marketplace and then get insured. It takes about a month, and then you have to find a doctor. So I couldn't, I couldn't make an appointment in time to receive quality care. And every time I changed doctors, they would want new tests. And so I was misdiagnosed for a year and a half. And somebody that was close to me, who was a doctor, and I shared all my symptoms, they were like, well, that's not the diagnosis you should be receiving. You should really go and find out more and get more tests. But it was really hard to advocate for myself, A, and I couldn't get consistent care, B. So I was able to find a community and help online outside of, the medical care system that I was in. And that really influenced, and that actually created A Line Parallel, the series of art where I explore fibroblasts, which is scar tissue. And I can talk more about that. But when I share the story of my struggle with people in the Valley, mostly women and women of color, and just folks in general, would have a very similar story of how they really struggle with care.
Can art make a difference in this aspect of a social issue like a doctor shortage?
Absolutely.
How?
100%.
How does it do it?
So I will use Along the Colorado as an example. So I curated an exhibition about the Colorado River water shortage. There's a drought. And when I did research, I was really inspired by how we had mandated that we had to remove all the decorative grass, right? Decorative, non-functional grass.
Okay, so this is an issue you became inspired by moving to Nevada.
Yes, yeah? Absolutely, okay. Absolutely. And when I hear non-functional and decorative, I sometimes get triggered because that's a lot of people would describe art as like decorative and non-functional, but that's not the case. And so when I started researching for this exhibition, I met Dr. Tom Minkley, who's a professor of geology in the University of Wyoming. And he organized a 3-month river rafting expedition down the Colorado River to document the state of that river. And his primary partner is Sapira Cheuk, who is an artist that was teaching at the university at the time. And they invited artists to raft with them as the scientists did their science thing, document the state. And the artists like visually documented the river. And I asked him, like, why was art core to this expedition, this very sciencey expedition? And he told me, art can do what science can't. It fills that gap. So, for example, I don't remember what the parameters are with the federal government, declare, the specific, number to declare that there's a water shortage. But I clearly remember those bathtub rings in Lake Mead. Those images are seared in my mind. And that's the power of art. It grabs you, it keeps you, and then if you're really interested and you care, then you can find out more.
When you explain this to your parents, what do they think? Because we spoke off camera about how you didn't even tell them that you were studying art in college. Your dad thought you were studying to become an accountant. Mm-hmm. Why'd you keep that from them?
I really thought that they would disown me.
Is that a cultural?
Yes,
okay.
yeah. Especially when I was growing up, that was very much an idea that you at least have to be financially sustained, like you have to financially sustain yourself, and they did not have examples in their life where artists could do that. And that's totally not the case, especially in Nevada.
That's really neat. Yeah. So do they understand when you elevate that it's not just art for art's sake, for the viewing pleasure of it, but it has a purpose, sometimes impacting people's knowledge of certain social issues?
Yes, absolutely. And like they are starting to understand that art has an intrinsic value, as a social value, and they see it as a way to connect rather than a product as decoration.
Now, your full-time job is as Artist Services Specialist at the Nevada Arts Council, which is a division of a state agency. This involves grants and artists. How do you make the argument when someone says, how do you justify public funding for art versus, let's say, a food bank or a homeless shelter?
Sure, yeah, those are a really great questions. I think we should fund all of those things, first of all, but specifically for art. And if you don't already see the intrinsic inherent value, the social value, the value of like advocating for a cause that's really important, or raising awareness, or inspiring action, here's the argument I would make. We in Nevada really depend on our tourism industry. It's like 42% of our GDP. And think about the let's just say Las Vegas experience. Like how do we represent that globally? What is our image? What does that look like? Now imagine, and who create that experience, right? Now imagine the Strip without any art, without any architecture. The font is all the same. The building's white. You go into a casino, there's no pattern on the carpet. It's just concrete. The slot machine doesn't have any image. It's just text. It would look so different, right? It wouldn't be the Las Vegas that we know, and folks want to come visit. So art is really essential to us. And how do we continue to be competitive globally? In order to do that, like art and culture is like $10.9 billion annually in our GDP. So we need to ensure that we have a healthy pipeline of creatives and culture workers to innovate and continue to be competitive. We need to ensure that we're nurturing our creative in order for us to have a prosperous future.
Sapira Cheuk, thanks so much for joining Nevada Week in Person.
Fawn Douglas grew up in the downtown colony of the Las Vegas Paiute tribe, received her Master of Fine Arts at UNLV, and in 2021 opened the new Wu Art Plus Activism Center in Las Vegas's historic Huntridge neighborhood. We learned more about her art and her activism in this 2023 interview.
So for those who don't know, the Las Vegas Paiute tribe is a tribe of the Southern Paiute people, also known as the Nuwu, and the Las Vegas area is on Southern Paiute land. But about the Las Vegas Paiute tribe, what makes you most proud to be a member?
Ooh, where do I start with that? I am a proud member of the Las Vegas Paiute tribe, and just recently, over the past few years specifically, just seeing our tribe go through so much, especially with the pandemic. Our tribal council has stood up for our people, made moves so that our people are taken care of. We have an education committee. We have our tribal council that I can't stop boasting about, who does everything to really go over the current economic development, the future economic development of the tribe, but also maintaining that we have our culture within the tribe. Our people meet once a month for our tribal council meetings, and we have some really strong leadership. So I think right now the tribal council is definitely something to be very proud of as a tribal member, because they're doing so much. They work tirelessly every single day for our people and thinking about the future of what and what sovereignty means.
Now, within your art, you tell the stories of Indigenous people. You want those stories to be heard in modern times. What story would you say is most relevant right now to be told?
Within my art, I would have to go back to my woven works. I did a collection of Nuwu baskets, and with these baskets, I have taken what is in my environment. And so we're here in the city of Las Vegas. Of course, before the city was here, our people were here and are still here. And there's different places where we had harvested willows and other materials for basket weaving. And currently we can go down to the Wetlands Park and gather some items for that. But when we were building our Nuwu Art Gallery and Community Center and the adjoining buildings, the Activism Studios, there was a lot of rubble and things around, trash in the back, and when we're clearing that out, I was taking items and repurposing them. And so I was taking some weaving practices that our people are known for and subverting the idea of what it means to use tradition. And so traditionally, yes, I have harvested the items to make those baskets within my homelands. I had taken those items, but they're metal. They're conduit wire, they're other metal pieces and other types of wires. And so I had created these things, and when I'm thinking about it, when I'm making these pieces, I'm thinking about my great-grandmother, Topsy Swain Ikaip, and I'm thinking about her woven works that are at the Lost City Museum, and I'm thinking... Thank you. And I'm thinking about her, I'm thinking about our people, I'm thinking, as our council members do, I'm thinking 7 generations back, but also thinking ahead of what kind of materials will last into the future to be telling our stories that are happening now. And so when I think about that, because I think we've gone through a lot of trauma. There's, in fact, not only our people with a lot of loss, but this collective trauma over the pandemic the past few years. And when I think about that, I think about, what is it that makes me happy during these times? Because I certainly have a number of works that lean into, my activism and things that I've worked on in the past. But when I'm thinking about joy as a tool of activism, presence as a tool of activism, and being able to inspire others, through art, that is also activism.
I don't associate joy and activism together. I associate activism with struggle and strife, but you're breaking new ground, do you think?
I feel that, especially as an artist, when we think about futurisms, we think about what is the brightest future that we can dream? What can we do in the present to, move forward and, really blaze that path? Because we've already gone through our apocalypse, Our Native people have already gone through these struggles in our past, but what does it mean to truly be happy? Even, I talk with my daughter, because she struggles sometimes with thinking about activism and the many things that are happening within the communities and, around the world today. And there's so much to really get you down, and she can't be everywhere at once. Mm-hmm. And, but it's like, you are breathing. You are getting up in the day, you are going to school, you are doing something to strengthen your mind, strengthen your heart, strengthen your body, to keep moving forward. Our ancestors went through so much pain. For you to be here today, not to struggle, not to, cry. Yes, there are sorrows, there are things that are happening, but also what brings you joy, what's going to move you forward. And that's inspiring. She's inspiring me, just seeing her, just be her. And I think that's really beautiful.
Your introduction to activism, when was it? What was it?
Ooh. When I think about activism, I feel like that's always been ingrained in us as Southern Paiute people. Our Southern Paiutes, our small band of people, are the ones that remained even during the times of colonization. So when Las Vegas was established, a lot of our people were moved out. But there was a small band that remained, and it was around 50 people. And even today, we are 49 tribal members. We're one of the smallest tribes in North America. Wow. And, with that, I think about, our struggle, but I think about our resilience. We remained, we stayed. And so that activism of, standing your ground, that is, who we are as Southern Paiute people. And so I think I've always had, that flair of activism. It just comes with being Paiute. But when I think about activism, actually being out there, it really came with Gold Butte. It came with what was happening with the Gold Butte before it became a national monument, and just learning about, how our petroglyphs are being used as target practice, how the area was being trashed and destroyed. There's artifacts. The area is beautiful, and that was being destroyed. And so I wanted to get involved with that, and there's a number of artists in Las Vegas that were working to use their art to really drive that message. And so I got involved, and I got more involved than I thought I would, because at the time I was learning about the place too. I was learning about our history. And Gold Butte is closer to the Moapa Band of Paiutes, but those are also our relatives. And I was learning, from my uncle, Greg Anderson. He's just an amazing person, just so full of just a wealth of information about our histories. And I was learning about, what it means, to be a Southern Paiute person, to be a Southern Paiute woman, and to really, listen, even try to take a step back and listen. Listen to what the rocks are telling you, listen to what this land is, how you're connecting with it, and listen to the elders too. So I got a lot of information about just who I am as a person, and that was really a pivotal moment in my growth for activism, especially when it comes to promoting who we are as Southern Paiute people.
What does it mean to be a Southern Paiute woman?
Oh, it means to struggle. No, it's not all of that. But to be a Southern, but to be a Southern Paiute woman means to be connected to these lands, because we are a part of the lands that we come from. This is who we are. And to be a Southern Paiute person is to be connected to these lands. I wish others had this connection, because I really feel like that is the tool for allyship and for stewardship too, because there's so many beautiful places around here, not just Gold Butte National Monument as it is now, not just the Avi Kwa'ame or Red Rock Conservation Area, or even the Sloan Canyon area. They're all full of all these beautiful petroglyphs and other sites. And if other people knew about the histories of this area, knew about the people who belong to this area, they would have this care for it. They would have this love for it, as we do.
Speaking of creating partnerships, how are you doing that at the Nuwu Art and Activism Studios? What are you doing there for people who don't know?
Oh, thank you. Yes, at the Nuwu Art and Activism Studios, we have studios available for artists or activists. There's a nonprofit organization there. There's two. Mass Liberation Project, which does amazing work in the community. They do amazing work with bailing out the moms, because unfortunately, people of color are disproportionately incarcerated versus any other communities. And so there's that nonprofit that is there that's doing just amazing work. But also Indigenous AF. Indigenous AF works to decolonize through the arts and education, and also with that focus on joy. We're looking at our children that are attending there and other community members that are bringing their kids. We have art events every final Friday where we bring in community and just a moment of joy, for them to learn an art different project and to be with others and share some food, share some good times and some music, and yeah, just to have that moment, because we are taking back our joy is what we're doing. We're taking back, being within community and to share that.
Is that what decolonization is? What is it for people who don't understand?
For decolonizing means different things for different people. Decolonizing for me means getting back to cultural ways. Decolonizing is learning your language, learning the Southern Paiute language. And I still trip over it because I'm trying to decolonize my tongue. To say Hagarawayak, Nininian Fawn, Nikmunuuvi. It has taken me actually a really long time just to introduce myself in my Southern Paiute language. But that's also a part of decolonizing, is to, because we speak English, and some of our community members speak Spanish as well, but also just to remove that and to just learn a bit more about who you are, learning about cultural ways, listening to the elders, respecting the elders, listening to the lands, and being more in tune with what is happening within our environment. And currently there's this renaissance that is happening with our Southern Paiute people where they're learning about their cultural ways. They always have. Let me reel that one back. But it is more present now, and it's really amazing to see, And over at the studios, we have space to nurture those types of things. I mean, it wasn't even a few weeks ago where we had artists from the Fawn Shoshone Paiute tribe, Loretta Burden, and she was teaching a weaving workshop for a cradle board cover. And a number of our Southern Paiutes came out, and it was really beautiful to see that it was mostly youth. It was mostly youth that wants to, learn about these ways, learn about how to bend the willows, how to weave, and what different designs mean. And that was really an amazing moment of decolonization to be a part of.
Wow. Fawn Douglas, thank you so much for joining Nevada Week in Person.
Thank you for having me.